Hola Comadres, this is Marcy, your comadre. I'm just popping in to let you know that I recorded this episode a few months ago, actually, at the beginning of November, and so much has happened since then. Um, I'm actually recording this prelude to the episode on December 31st, which is New Year's Eve. I want to wish you guys a happy and healthy new year. And I promise to continue to deliver the quality of show that you have been expecting from me since the beginning. And I want to thank you all for your listenership. As I said in my previous post on Instagram, we're up to 7,000 downloads, which is insane because I didn't know uh, when I would get to that. I didn't think it was going to be that soon, but nevertheless, I am so elated and happy that you guys have stuck with me since the beginning. To all the new comadres, thank you and welcome. I feel like I should do an introduction, right? I am your comadre Marcy. I am a special education teacher from New York City. I am Dominican. I grew up here in Washington Heights, but I was born in DR. I am the mom to an autistic son who is 14 years old. He currently goes to high school and is doing pretty well, actually. That's pretty much it. Oh, I'm the eldest daughter of a typical Dominican family. We are first generation. So my parents came here with me, actually. I was born there. So my upbringing was a little different than everybody else. And not everybody else, but it was a little bit different than a lot of the Dominicans that I know. My family really stuck to the culture and maintained the values, and you know, like we say, soy dominicana hasta la tambora. I'm Dominican till the drums. So, without further ado, I want to introduce the episode. The episode today is about masking. It's a phenomenon that is widely known in the autistic community, but I want to go a step further and say that it happens more often than we know, and it happens a lot in communities of color as well because of the way that we're socialized. I get more into it in the episode. It's a really good one. I did a lot of research to get you guys the facts and statistics about it. Like I say on the episode, I am going to be bringing a person that is an expert about that, a person who is on the spectrum, um, more than likely a person of color, and a person that is autistic, to speak about masking and the reasoning behind it, and why it's so harmful for people on the spectrum to mask their autistic traits. So without further ado, I want to thank you and wish you a happy new year and to 7,000 more downloads. Remember to visit our website for official Comadre merch. If you're watching the YouTube channel, you can see I'm wearing one of the new t-shirts. It says Comadreando. And that's for sale on the website. All you have to do is click the link in the bio. And that is pretty much it. Looking forward to seeing you guys after the new year. Take care and be kind to everyone. Bye. Hola, comadres. Welcome to another episode of Comadreando podcast. I'm your host, Marcy. And today, this is another solo episode. I am going to be sharing some things that I researched with you all. And I love these episodes. Because I'm a nerd and I love to share what I learned because it helps me retain the information. I hope all is well. This is going to be airing a few weeks after Aiden's 14th birthday. And I really want to thank you all. I can't believe he's 14 already. And I took him to the pediatrician the Monday before his birthday, and they weighed him and measured him, and he was 5'5" and 153 pounds. And that is crazy because I remember when I gave birth to him, he was like 21 inches long and he only weighed 8.5 pounds. So, it's just a full circle moment because, when you have a kid, you don't necessarily think about what they're going to look like when they're older. I mean, kind of, but not really. But it's, he's bigger than what I expected and he's tall. And thank God he's in great health. He's actually taller than me. I mean, looking at a lot of people, they are all taller than me because I'm a tall, small person. Um, so we're dealing with a lot of things, in particular, the puberty department, which I won't disclose because I don't want to embarrass him. But if any comadres know of any doctors that work with teens or counselors that work with teens on the spectrum or with special needs, please send me some information, ask some questions. It's very different when you're a woman and you're raising a young boy. So help me, people, please. So today's topic is very interesting. We're going to be talking about the phenomenon of masking together. So the reason why I chose the topic is because I really was unaware of what it was. I mean, people do it in general. However, I really didn't know that it was a phenomenon or something that was pervasive in the autistic community until I watched Love on the Spectrum on Netflix. I thought it was a good topic since we're trying to create more inclusive environments. I want to explore what masking is and what it looks like. Also, I wanted to dig a little deeper into the reasoning behind it and what consequences it can bring to our children, right? Our children and adults on the spectrum. So, circling back, we're going to be going into what is autism exactly. I know we've been talking about it since the beginning of the show, but, it's always good to give a refresher. Also, I have some new comadres that have joined that don't necessarily have people on the spectrum. So we're going to talk about what is autism. And simply put, autism is a condition that encompasses a whole wide range of neurological differences that affect the way people communicate, learn, and interact with others. The CDC, or the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention, source lists some of these differences as preferring to not have or avoid eye contact or physical contact with other people. They can have difficulty recognizing or talking about emotions. They can be less aware of social cues. They can feel stressed by changes to routines. They can have repetitive behaviors, which can be physical gestures or movements. And they can use rehearsed or repetitive phrases like echolalic speech. So that is more or less things that are noticeable about people on the spectrum. However, not every person on the spectrum shows these behaviors. And, as I've said before, when you meet one person on the spectrum, you just met one person on the spectrum. Doesn't mean that there's a specific mold of autism spectrum disorder that everybody fits into, right? So let's go into the phenomenon of masking, which I found pretty fascinating. So masking is also called autism masking or compensating, is a social survival strategy, and how it looks can vary from person to person, but masking can include behaviors like forcing or faking eye contact during conversations, imitating smiles or other facial expressions, mimicking gestures, hiding or minimizing personal interests, developing a repertoire or of rehearsed responses to questions, scripting conversations, pushing through intense sensory discomfort, including loud noises, disguising stimming behaviors, hiding a jiggling foot, or trading a preferred movement for one that's less obvious. So, autism masking is basically hiding themselves in a way. They're trying to seem more neurotypical, or like more similar to the neurotypical peers. So they're reducing those behaviors that would, at first glance, oust them as being neurodivergent, which is a little concerning for me and a little sad that they have to resort to that type of survival mechanism. But I feel like in society in general, the way that we're socialized as humans is like, we don't want to stand out for a bad reason, or not bad rather, but we don't want to stand out for a reason where people are gonna, label us as quote unquote weird or strange. And, you know, even in like, even in cave times, I'm sure that there was always like, people that adapted to their environment to survive and not call attention to themselves in a negative way. So I feel like masking is one of those behaviors that have been learned, but for people on the spectrum, it's more intrinsic because they're trying to fit into, neurotypical society. So they're going to be hiding certain things about their own personality or behaviors so that people, to make friends or, things like that. So there's different stages of autism masking. So this has been. So there were various studies that looked into the phenomenon of masking, and they found out that there's different stages of autism masking. So before the person starts masking, they have a 3-stage model. So basically, there has to be a motivation, the act of masking, and then the consequences. So masking starts when a neurodivergent person recognizes that something important hinges on being perceived as neurotypical. Maybe it's a friendship, a relationship, a job opportunity, or personal safety. Whatever the motivation is, the autistic person can feel they must hide differences or change the way they act naturally, often because their living and working environment doesn't tolerate, support, or respect neurodivergent behaviors. So, to avoid being bullied or being able to obtain the same opportunities as their neurotypical peers, they're going to mask in order to be able to attain those things. So when people feel they have to compensate for autism characteristics, they have to invest a lot of time and energy in trying to pass as neurotypical, right? So some things that they can do is that they learn social cues from various forms of media. They can observe interactions between people around them. They monitor their own facial expressions, so you can see them perseverate in looking in the mirror and trying to copy the body language of the people around them. They can research social rules and norms. They can practice appearing interested or relaxed, and they can adjust their tone of voice to match other people's vocal patterns. So basically, they're trying to seem as neurotypical as possible. So they're going to adapt to whatever environment they're in to be able to be seen as normal, quote unquote normal, because there's really no normality. So what's concerning to me is that they don't really do it for themselves. It's to make neurotypical people feel better. And we as a society should be able to accept people for their, differences in general, and like not judge them. Because the thing is, once society is able to create a more inclusive environment and accept people for who they are and how they are, there's going to be less and less of a need for people to mask their autism traits. So once the kids or the adults, rather, it can be children or adults, actually, once they get these observations and skills, the person with autism can then use those skills that they learned in social situations to varying effects. Some people are so effective at masking that no one can tell they're pretending or performing. Others are less effective at masking. So one thing that has stood out to me from several autism accounts that I follow of people that are actually on the spectrum is that they work so hard to mask, and then some people can still tell that they're neurodivergent. So, they're putting in all this effort and sometimes it's still noticeable. It's very exhausting because this is I'm going to make a simplistic comparison. So when my mother grew up, I want to say in the 60s in Dominican Republic, she went to a Catholic school. In the Catholic school, people were not supposed to be writing with their left hand because the left hand was for the devil or whatever, some kind of superstition like that. So a lot of people that were lefties taught themselves to write with their right hand. So think about this. The amount of effort and, training and, all of this going into doing everything with your non-dominant hand so that you wouldn't get in trouble or, be punished by the nuns. So I'm making this kind of vertical comparison, not vertical, kind of a horizontal comparison because it's not the same situation, but it's still, you're hiding a piece of yourself to be able to fit in and not suffer consequences. So imagine all that effort. It's similar, right? You're learning all these different behaviors to be able to fit into a mold or a certain expectation of behavior that people have for you. So either way, the cognitive and emotional effort affects people's mental and physical health. People who mask regularly often say they feel drained or exhausted by the effort of trying to conform to neurotypical standards of behavior. So a couple of people that I've had on the show, so Charlotte, which is the Spectrum girl, commented on that to me, and so did Ayana. They spoke about having to mask their behaviors that make neurotypical people uncomfortable. Charlotte had such a hard time at work that she was constantly masking, and it drove her to the point, mental health wise, that she became suicidal, which she shared with us. Then the other flip side of that is that Ayana shared with me that, she masks stimming. So she does a lot of fidgeting with her hands, and which, it doesn't bother me, but it's just a learned behavior. So she makes sure that when she's out in public or she's hanging out with other people, that she's controlling these movements, the stimming behaviors, to be able to fit in and not, draw attention to herself in the long run. This is just kind of like a tidbit. I'm informing you guys about what the behavior is, and then I want to bring in somebody that's on the spectrum to share their experiences with masking, so that we can see what it's like. Because the thing is, we can look at data and research, but somebody's personal experience is going to be, at least for me, it's going to be more it's gonna be more valuable for me, like knowing firsthand, not firsthand, but knowing from a primary source what that's like. Okay, so people mask for many different reasons. Some of the reasons is, like I said before, to feel safe and avoid stigmas, to avoid mistreatment or bullying, to succeed at work, to attract a romantic partner. That's a big one. To make friends or other social connections, to fit in or feel a sense of belonging. So, long term, like short term, they can obtain all these things, but there's going to be some long term effects of regular masking. So stress and anxiety is one. In a 2019 study, researchers found that stress and anxiety were higher in people who routinely masked autistic traits compared to those who used masking less often. Depression. In 2018, researchers interviewed 111 autistic adults, finding that those who reported masking their autistic traits had symptoms of depression and felt unaccepted by people in their social sphere. Exhaustion. Masking consumes huge amounts of energy, like I said before. In a 2016 study, women who used masking to satisfy neurotypical standards said they felt exhausted by their constant effort. Another consequence of masking is delayed identification of autism. Some people are so good at masking their autism that they are not identified as autistic until much later on in life. The delay can lead to mental health issues because people don't get the support or understanding they need. Also, they're not going to be receiving the services that they need to be able to, fit those needs that they have, a loss of identity was also reported. Some people who mask their identity, interests, and traits end up feeling that they no longer know who they really are. Some have said masking feels like self-betrayal. Others have said masking makes them feel like they're deceiving other people. Long-term masking can also increase the risk of autistic burnout, which I posted before, but autistic burnout is basically when somebody's mental health declines so much because of things that they're experiencing as a person who's neurodivergent, that leads them to, have serious mental health issues. So when people push themselves to behave in ways that don't feel authentic, the result can be an overwhelming feeling of overload, sometimes called autistic burnout. Masking may require an extended period of quiet withdrawal and recovery. So, like I said before, Charlotte experienced autistic burnout, and it drove her to the point that she needed to, be hospitalized and see a psychologist about it. So, another thing was increased risk of suicidal thoughts. So, in a recent study, it said that prolonged masking was linked to lifetime suicidality. The study was relatively small, so it was only out of 160 students and involved mostly women, 89.6%. However, it showed that masking led to feeling like a burden, which in turn led to more suicidal thoughts over the course of a lifetime. Okay, which is very sad. We should be supporting people and making them feel accepted regardless of how they are, and not making them feel like they need to change something of themselves to be able to be accepted or be loved and be valued in society. So another article talked about what is the outlook for autistic people, and it says the CDC reports that there is no cure for autism yet, and many in the autism community contend that neurodiverse people don't need to be cured. So that's another thing that I addressed in the sleep episode, that these people are like saying that they want to cure autism, but there's really no cure. It's just a different way of thinking. It's neurodiversity. Not everybody thinks or has the same brain connections as we do, and that's okay. So the study went on to say that, in fact, some autistic advocates think the best way to prevent damaging health effects of masking is to make a world safer and more supportive place for people who function differently. So basically reducing the need for them to pretend and mask. This is also, so masking, it is an autistic trait, not a trait. It's a defense mechanism in autism. But I feel like when people are placed in environments that are not their typical environments, they mask to be able to assimilate into the culture or be accepted. So one thing I want to like go back to the beginning, like I think season 1, when I had Pavel Nunez on, we were talking about authenticity, right? A lot of people, to be able to fit into the corporate culture, mask who they are to be able to assimilate to that, right? And it's exhausting, right? You know, coming up into work and then like having a completely different personality from who you are at home is exhausting. So think about that in terms of somebody having to do that 24/7, not just in a work environment. Let's say that they're masking also in social situations. They're masking at home because they're not being accepted for their neurodiversity. So we definitely need to create safer and more supportive environments where our kids are going to feel okay functioning in the way that they do. Okay. So one important benefit to identifying autism early is that family, okay, wait. So masking can have detrimental things, right? So one thing that I've been saying is that identifying autism early can give family the chance to learn about their kids' needs and create an environment in which their kids feel accepted and supported, right? So it's better to know that your child is neurodiverse, and then not only that, but learning who they are as people to be able to support them as a family. I feel like it's more important than anything else. So the bottom line is that masking is a complex and costly survival strategy for people on the spectrum, and it involves intentionally learning neurotypical behaviors and mimicking them in social situations. Sometimes masking focuses on hiding behaviors that people feel won't be accepted. In other cases, it focuses on preparing scripts and strategies to compensate for communication differences. I can tell you that when I worked in corporate, there was definitely a script that I was like, you know, using with customers and other higher ups to be able to fit in. And it definitely was like, I felt like there was two, like I was splitting, like, what is the name of this show on Apple TV? It's called, oh my goodness, Severed, something like Severed. Basically, the people are going in to this work environment and they're severing their personality. So there's a work person and then there's the home person. It's the same person, but they're being so inauthentic that they're basically creating two different personalities, which is essentially what is done when we're not being our authentic selves in the workplace, or when our kids are not being their genuine authentic selves because they feel that they're not going to be accepted in different environments that they interact with on a daily basis. So, like I said before, so people with can master autism characteristics to boost their careers, to connect with others, to avoid being stigmatized by other people. Masking can help at times, but regular masking can have serious effects on mental and physical health. That can include anxiety, depression, exhaustion, a loss of identity, and suicidal thoughts. So, one way to minimize these harmful effects of masking is to work toward a world which neurodiverse people are accepted as they are, and people are treated with respect and kindness, whether they communicate in neurotypical ways or not. So I'm going to be linking in the show notes all the articles that I read, but I can share some of the titles. So one of the articles that I read was on Healthline, and it's called Autism Masking: To Blend or Not to Blend. The first two lines says, hiding who you are is an uncomfortable and exhausting experience for many autistic people. That experience is a daily reality. Okay. And it was a very interesting article. Another one I read was Putting on My Best Normal: Social Camouflaging in Adults with Autism Spectrum Conditions. And this one talks about camouflaging of autistic traits in social situations is hypothesized as a common social coping strategy for adults with autism spectrum conditions. Sorry, comadres. Aiden is here listening to cartoons while I'm trying to record. Okay. The next article that I read, Camouflaging in Autism Spectrum Disorder, Examining Roles of Sex, Gender Identity, and Diagnostic Timing. So basically, it talks about camouflaging to appear non-autistic. It modifies the behavioral presentation of core autism spectrum disorder features, so social and communication differences. However, this article was very interesting because it talks about assimilation and compensation, but in addition, it talks about how women on the autism spectrum report more camouflaging across all three camouflaging autistic traits questionnaire subscales. So they had a questionnaire where they measured how often and how much people camouflage on the spectrum. And it showed that these women on the spectrum tended to camouflage more to fit in. I have a couple of theories why, but we'll get to that next. So the next one I read was You Must Become a Chameleon to Survive: Adolescent Experiences in Camouflaging. So it just talks about that, and it talks about the questionnaires that are put in place. Okay. The next article that I read was Gender Differences in Self-Reported Camouflaging in Autistic and Non-Autistic Adults. So that's another one that talks about gender differences, that women tend to camouflage more than men. And then the final one is Gender Differences in the Social Motivation and Friendship Experiences of Autistic and Non-Autistic Adolescents. So it analyzes between male and female, what is the social motivation and what are the friendship experiences of autistic and non-autistic adolescents. Okay, so one of the reasons that I feel like females on the spectrum camouflage more than the males is because the way that women are socialized and the way that, and this is like speaking from experience based on my experiences as a young child, girls, small girls, are still more bullied than other groups, right? So girls are more likely to gang up on each other and be mean to each other at a younger age. So I feel like autistic women will most likely try to fit in more and do more things to, as I was saying, women are socialized to existing groups, and when a woman or a female or a girl is not behaving according to typical behaviors for the social group, they're bullied in a very severe way. And I'm speaking from experience because this is something that I experienced as a kid. I never wanted to be one of those kids that were being picked on by the group of girls, the mean group of girls, like the ones that are the cool bunch. So I used to adjust my behavior a lot to be able to camouflage and blend in to the social situation at school. I remember one girl was bullied because she used to eat her boogers or whatever, and it was just relentless. And it was the whole group of them constantly going after this little girl and bothering her. So thinking about that situation from when I was growing up, I could see why women who are on the spectrum or girls that are on the spectrum would report camouflaging more to be able to fit in the long run. So with that, comadres, I am promising you that I will be bringing on a person that is neurodiverse on the spectrum, and we're gonna, discuss the phenomenon of masking and the effect it has had on their lives. So I'm gonna end the episode here, how I usually end it, which is follow me at Comadreando Pod. And if you have any questions at all, please feel free to send me a Comadre-Gram via email at Marcy@comadreandopod.com or slide up into my DMs. Thank you for spending the evening with your comadre. And don't forget to visit our website. We have a blog on there that I share different things and different articles with you guys. And I write little pieces, to keep you guys updated. So make sure to subscribe, and then you get notifications for when I add blog posts. Anywho, love you guys very much. Thank you so much for the birthday wishes, and I hope you have an amazing week. Bye. Hola, comadres. I would like to formally extend an invitation to our first Comadre Happy Hour of 2023, which will take place on Friday, January 6th from 5 to 8 p.m. at Sujo Gastro Fusion in the Bronx. Good news, there is parking available. Make sure to click the Eventbrite link in the show notes to secure your ticket. Hope to see you all there. Bye.